It's not healthy. It's ripped and it's torn and it's broken. And to a certain extent, this is what I feel is happening right now. I want to apologize to the custodial staff before I do this. I'm sorry. These are our community members. Some of them are addicted to drugs. Some of them aren't. But this is what's happening to them right now. That's a person. Here's some cocaine. Here's another person. Here's some crack. Here's a couple more people. Here's some crystal meth. That's a visual of what I see happening here. Whew. I'm hoping that after today and going forward and with the work that's already being done, and after we listen to James Favel from the Bear Clan and the message he has to share with us, I'm hoping we can work towards this kind of mesh so that this kind of stuff happens. This is a person. She might be hooked on crystal meth, she might be hooked on pills, we don't really know, but this is her. This is some cocaine. This is a young man from our community. He's hooked on cocaine. Here's the cocaine. And here's a couple from our community. They're hooked on crack. Their kids are in care. And here's the crystal meth. We didn't let them fall through that gap. We caught them. And these are our agencies in ebb and flow. The school, the health center, CFS, like the hall. The hall is a place too. People come here, it's part of our community. And no one let this go. All these 4 women up here held this, and they did their part. And I think that's what needs to happen. I think we need to work together and we need to catch these people. We're not going to catch all of them. Some might fall through, but that's okay. It's what matters is that we're catching some of them. We're helping them, we're bringing kids home. We're getting people employed. And that's a visual. And I didn't know how to do this. I was talking with somebody and I said, I don't know what to do, maybe like stuffed animals or, so I just went and bought Barbies, and I mean, it might look like really crazy to somebody, but that's my visual of what's happening. And when my 11-year-old daughter asked me, why are you doing this? This is what I showed her so she could understand what's important. And you know what, there's a mess down there. but we'll clean that up later. But right now, what's important is saving our community members. So thanks for helping, girls. That was my little visual.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. So I'm James Favel. I've been given the title of Executive Director for Bear Clan Patrol Inc., but really I'm just a guy from the north end of Winnipeg that was sick and tired of watching all the crazy things that were happening in my community without giving back and trying to make a change. I'd like to thank you for inviting me to be here with you this evening. Just for the record, public speaking is not where I shine. I'm kind of more of a practical applications kind of guy. I've been told that this whole public speaking thing gets better, or easier at least, and I'm still not feeling it yet. So please bear with me. I'd like to start today by referencing a date that I'll never forget, a date that changed my life and the lives of those around me, a date that had a profound impact on our nation, a date that brought about an awakening. I'm talking about the 17th of August 2014, the day they found Tina Fontaine's body in our Red River at Alexander Docks. That was the last straw for me, for my family and my community. That was the last indignity that we would suffer without an appropriate response. Our response was to be Bear Clan Patrol. Bear Clan Patrol was originally formed in 1992 in Winnipeg in response to violence against women and the lack of appropriate response from the state. Back in the day, it was said you could punch a hole in a storefront window on Selkirk Avenue and the police would be there in about 4 or 5 minutes, but you could hit your partner and they may or may not show up at all. Bear Clan was formed to fill that void. The patrols ran until 1995. At their peak, they had 200 volunteers, and the patrols were done primarily in vehicles on the weekend. At one point, it turned into a workers' co-op, and they started to do security for pay. In 1995, there was a series of departures that led to the program being shut down, and then went into hibernation for most of the next 20 years. Sadly, this new incarnation of Bear Clan Patrol was once again formed in direct response to violence, in direct response to the frustration over the status quo. For me personally, for my family and my community, the death of Tina Fontaine was a turning point. The disrespect, the level of violence, and the systemic failures to protect this young girl really did force a response. It was time at a community level to step up, take back the responsibility of protecting ourselves. If we wanted to live better in a better community, it was going to take an investment, and it had to start with us. We were going to live that whole be the change we want to see philosophy. Today's Bear Clan Patrol is a community-based, volunteer-driven safety patrol. Our mandate is to protect and empower the women, children, elderly, and vulnerable members of our community. We do this non-violently, without judgment, and in harmony with the communities we serve. We are not trying to replace the police. Our purpose is to reduce the need for their service. We do this by being a consistent presence in the community. Our goal is to de-escalate critical incidents before they become a police matter. We don't chase down gang members or drug dealers. We build relationships. We tend to the injured and the addicted. When we first started, we operated exclusively in the north end here, or in Winnipeg. Winnipeg is home to the 5th largest urban Indigenous population in the world, in excess of 95,000 members and growing. That population, myself included, find ourselves concentrated largely in the inner city, where poverty, addictions, homelessness, exploitation, poor housing stock, near zero vacancy rate, skyrocketing rents all exist. Then there's the social safety net that has failed to keep up with the real costs of living for those that rely on their services. I guess you understand about how hard it is to try meeting your daily dietary requirements on little more than $3 a day. Did you know that most of the child apprehension that goes on in our Indigenous community is poverty related and not related to abuse or neglect? And did you know that the child welfare system, the children that go into that system have a dollar value on average better than $170 per day? These and many other factors make it hard living in the inner city. When we first started, we were 12 volunteers sitting around a boardroom table on Selkirk Avenue, 12 like-minded people, all with different gifts, throwing in together for a common goal. You may wonder why we didn't choose other options like Cop Program or Neighborhood Watch that all come with all sorts of supports. The bottom line is the state does the vetting for those programs, and there is a criminal record component that disqualifies persons with a criminal record. I myself am a 4-time convicted felon. I wouldn't have been able to contribute, and likewise a disproportionate number of my fellow community members. We are 70% Indigenous in the North End, and we do find ourselves incarcerated at much higher rates, and we wanted a program that would allow us to work more freely with our community members. Here at Bear Clan, a criminal record does not automatically disqualify you from participation. We value lived experience. We do, however, have certain standards. We won't work with people convicted of or known to be violent towards women. We also won't work with anyone with a history of sexual violence of any kind. Beyond that, if there's time and distance between a person and their crimes, if they made the conscious decision to move forward in their lives in a good way, to contribute, to give back to their community, why would we stand in their way? We are trying to undo the effects of marginalization in our community. We are trying to help every member of our community develop a stakeholder mentality, because hopelessness is chased away by empowerment. So this is one of our biggest patrols ever, 64 members. When we first started out, I went and I bought these cool shirts because I thought they looked fantastic. Of course, in October, when you put a jacket on, they become completely useless. So that's why we went to the high-vis vest, which you can see and recognize. In this picture here, we have members from the Winnipeg Police. We have students from the Canadian Mennonite University, the University of Winnipeg, River Community College, Creative Communications, staff from West End 24/7, North End Women's Center. We also had 42 of these people that you see in this picture trained to use naloxone. In total, I think we've had over 150 of our volunteers trained to use naloxone. We did that so that we could better protect our community and better serve our community. When we start out, as you see, we have a great big group there. We don't go all out together like that. We break down into smaller groups, typically 5 or 6 members, and we post up across the streets. So we'll cover Selkirk, Pritchard, Manitoba, Magnus, Burroughs, depending on how many groups, and then we go in unison down the streets together so we can keep an eye on what's going on. At every cross street, we gather up and make sure that we can see everybody. We have radios for communication. If one of our groups doesn't show up, we call out to them to see where they're at. If they need help, we go in and join them. And so far, things have worked out fairly well. This here is a video. It's kind of, this link is broken, so I can't share it with you, but this is the first time that I ever said Bear Clan aloud outside of the house. Basically, I was chairman for the Dufferin Residents Association starting in 2011. In 2014, we were looking at community policing models. When Tina Fontaine's body was found in August, I decided that we wanted to try to get the Bear Clan Patrol back. And so I went down to the Alexander Docks to support the drag threat effort that had started there September 18th, 2014. This news story, I said that I was interested in getting the Bear Clan Patrol back up and running. That played at 6 o'clock. The next day I went to work and I got a call from one of my colleagues at the Residents Association saying that an original Bear Clan member had asked to take a meeting with us that afternoon. So I rushed back to the city. This is the first meeting that we had pertaining to Bear Clan, September 19, 2014. So that we just had our 4th year anniversary. It's myself, the late Larry Morissette, Mitch Bourbonniere, Buddy Ron. We decided at that meeting, I asked for permission. I passed tobacco to take on the model. They accepted that. Basically, it was never my intention to be as involved as I am right now. I'm a trucker by trade and I own my own truck and I have my own business. This is something I wanted to see happen, but I didn't want to be that invested. But because I was seen on the news the day before, they decided that I would be the guy who spearheaded this, and it kind of got voluntold. Here we are today. So Bear Clan is bringing safety to a troubled community. Just for the record, that woman that I'm dragging across the street is my mom, so that's okay. We're trying to build, get that feeling of community back that we once had. Like, I grew up in the 70s, and I remember that I knew everybody on my block, and I knew everybody's kids, and I went into most of the homes, for whatever reason. That was safe, and comfortable, and we've lost that, and one of the things that we're trying to do is bring that back. When I first started out, one of the things that really struck me, I was coming home one night, and I live on Stella between Mackenzie and McGregor, and I was coming on Selkirk Avenue, turn off onto McGregor to head home, and I see this young woman. She's laying, it was April, probably 6 o'clock in the evening. It had been raining earlier in the day. It was still cold, and I see this young woman. She's laying there, her back to the street. She's in the fetal position. She's got no shoes, no jacket, no belongings at all. And so I recognized that this was a problem, and I turned my car around and I went back to check on her. When I got to her, I asked her if she was okay, and she said, "No, I've been robbed." And I said, "Wow, how long have you been here?" And she said, "I've been here for an hour." And the height of rush hour traffic had just gone through in our community. Cars, trucks, and buses all over the place, people walking by. and in an hour, not one person stopped to check on this young woman's well-being, and that's one of the things that we're trying to defeat in our community, is we need that connectivity back. We need to see our community members talking to one another, engaging one another. When you see somebody in crisis, you need to act, and that's one of the things that we're really working hard to do right now. This year is a sample of some of the weapons that we've been finding. The meth crisis in our city has really spiked recently, and we're seeing a lot of crazy things. These weapons that you see on the back of my truck here, we accumulated over a period of 3 weeks. Every week we're taking these kinds of things off the streets. You know, you see the hatchet in every one of those pictures. That's one of the scariest things. The kids in our community are running out hatchets with edged weapons, with pepper spray and things like that. And people are getting hurt senselessly for, you know, $20 that they would get for stealing a bike. One of my volunteers, her daughter was standing on Redwood in Maine, and she pulled out her phone to use it, and somebody went flying by on a bike and grabbed the phone out of her hand, and it was gone. That's it, you know. And these kinds of things need to stop. With the rise in meth and drug use in general, we're seeing so much more mental health issues. Paranoid people tend to carry weapons and are taking them, and we're taking them off the streets in record number this year. My collection of hatchets is getting crazy big now. Yeah. Okay, and then I want to tell you a story about 2016. We do the zombie march with the kids at the Dinaway Youth Drop-In Center. And after we were finished with that, we head into Lord Suffolk Park Developments to walk around and make sure everybody's okay over there. We get in there, and this woman comes running out of door 19 in Suffolk Park Developments, and she's screaming something happened to her nephew. A couple seconds later, a young man comes walking out, and he's got his hand wrapped in a tea towel. My patrol leader, Susan Chief, got there first. The woman was, you know, freaked out about what happened to her nephew. Right, so the family had been drinking. Brother and sister got into an argument. Susan opens up the tea towel, and she sees that the young man's hand, the fingers are cut off at the middle knuckle here. The brother and sister were drinking. They got into an argument. She picked up a machete and attacked her brother. He put his hand up to defend himself, and she cut those 2 fingers off. Because Susan was there and she acted very quickly, she bandaged him up and triaged and pinned him above his chest so that he didn't bleed out. When the fire paramedics got there, all they had to do was transport him because she'd done such a good job. With that came an opportunity for us. Because the fire paramedics were impressed with the way Susan handled that, they started offering us free training. Through one of our first training episodes with fire paramedics, one of my volunteers related a time where he had need of an artificial external defibrillator but didn't have access to one. 72 hours later, they went out and got us one. So now we have artificial external defibrillators in the community. We have naloxone trainings in our community. We have first aid trainings in our community. We have mental health first aid in our community. All these kinds of trainings are starting to flow, and we're giving these things free to our volunteers. This year is a picture of the young man's hand 6 months later. As you can see, he still has his fingers. They still work. They were a little tight, still there, but they're still there. We're talking about a 22-year-old guy that could have lost those fingers and it would change the direction of his life. Thankfully, that's not the case. So I'd like to talk about some of the other things that we do in our community. We support all kinds of community events. I'm not sure how it happened, but we've become known for our parade marshaling services. We do ambassador services for all sorts of organizations like AMC, AFN, Canadian Red Cross. We do a lot of other things in the community, any kind of marches that happen. We like to be part of that. Concerts that happen in the community, St. John's Picnic in the Park, all those kinds of things. We like to participate in all those things. Community vigils, sadly, we're attending way too many of those. We're really hoping that through our efforts we'll be able to slow down, you know, the rate of homicides in our community, because there's just way too much of that going on. Who we are. So we are a diverse group. Although Bear Clan is Indigenous-led and based on our traditional clan system, we are not exclusive in either who we serve or who serves with us. Our volunteers come from all walks of life, from all over the city. We share a common goal, and that's what brings us together. At the end of the day, we all have the same basic needs, and we need to work together to help ensure that everyone we come into contact with is afforded the same level of respect, access to housing, education, employment, and other things that make life livable. Missing persons is another thing that we do a lot of. I'm not quite sure how it happened, but missing persons started to come our way with our Facebook, our social media. We were able to put a missing persons post out and now it's reaching, 100,000 people, and so we're finding a lot of people. Sadly, we found several bodies. We actually had some people going out to Grand Rapids yesterday, but they were turned around because they found those two guys. Anybody familiar with Delaney Kopanis? Anybody familiar with Ezraiah Kopanis from Kenora? Anybody familiar with Cooper Nemeth? Okay, well, these are three of the first high-profile missing persons cases we worked with. Delaney Kopanis was a teen from Kenora, Ontario. She went missing, and her family asked for our support in trying to find that young woman. Sadly, she was found, I think it was 17 days later, in the lake there in Kenora. Ezraiah Kopanis, she was a 14-year-old girl. She was on suicide watch in the Kenora hospital. I'm not quite sure why, but they decided to let her go at 10:30 on a Friday night. When she didn't make it to her destination, her family members contacted me right away. They asked for us to come out and start a search for her. So the next morning, I got together a group of people, and again, like we were unfunded at that point, so we didn't have any money to pay fuel and things like that. So the volunteers that took that on did that on their own time, on their own dime, and then went out to Kenora looking for her. I sent one of my guys, his name's Daryl Contois. He's a bush boy from Camper. He knows his way around. He's a MANSAR, that's Manitoba Search and Rescue trained, and we like to use him for searching. He went out there to Kenora, and he got to the muster point, which is just across the causeway from the hospital. When he got there, they were meeting in the parking lot, and there was a big bunch of volunteers there. A big bunch of them were family members of Ezraiah's. When he got out of the vehicle, he looked around, and he immediately saw that there was eagles doing tight turns around a stand of pine trees back by the hospital. The OPP had said that they had done a thorough ground search in that area. They had dogs, they had people in the water, they had helicopters going, and they said that area was searched already. We didn't worry about that. Daryl, after seeing the eagle, asked the family, the group, to stay in place because of the family members who were present, and he walked back across there, and when he got there, I think he was on the ground for maybe 20 minutes, he found Ezraiah's body. She was up in that tree. She had hung herself with her own shoelaces. One of the things that we didn't have back then was access to mental health first aid and things like that. It took a real toll on the group of people that were there that day. And so that's something that we're working to resolve as well. Like I said, we're starting to get those trainings now. We're starting to get the benefits of those kinds of trainings for our personnel. We did bring the young man. There was a young man last year that tried to swim across the Red River in Winnipeg. He didn't make it. It was a group of our volunteers that found his body and brought him out of the water. This summer, we were looking for a young man who stole a boat north of Winnipeg, came into Winnipeg, the Forks area, picked up 3 other friends of his, and then tried to head back out. And the boat capsized at one point, and one of the young men didn't make it. We spent a week searching for him. We had several sightings of the boy's body, but we weren't able to get him on the boat. But I think the attention that we brought to it, the fact that we were seeing him in the area by the Chief Douglas Bridge, brought media's attention to it. And there was a group of Hutterites with I guess they had like a dive team. They came up to support as well, and thankfully they were able to actually secure his body and bring it on shore. These kinds of things are not, wasn't what this was meant to be. It was about John traffic in the wake of what happened with Tina Fontaine. Our focus was going after the Johns, the exploitation in our community. But when you're out there, you quickly realize that there's so much more going on, and our role in the community has really grown to take on a much larger role. Missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls and survivors of violence. In our society, we tend to view growth and progress as success, and Bear Clan has seen remarkable growth, and we have progressed to take on a larger role in our community. Success, however, is elusive. We're still pulling bodies out of our rivers. The homeless are still homeless. The rates of addiction, crime, and violence are on the rise. The families of the missing and murdered will never be whole. Survivors of violence will never be free of their memories. Tina Fontaine and Renelle Harper, pictured here, are extreme examples of the kinds of violence that our Indigenous women have had to suffer through, and it is precisely why Bear Clan came into existence. Our mandate is to protect and empower the women, children, elderly, and the vulnerable members of our community. Patrol reports. One of the things that we've started doing as well is we're trying to keep track of what we're coming across in the community. Like I said, we are a very diverse crowd. We have people that have spent 20 years in the federal penitentiary. We also have people that were 35 years in the military. We have people with learning disabilities like FAS and other things like that. We also have resident doctors that walk with us. This patrol report was generated by one of our volunteers who spent a lot of time in the military the last 15 years doing policy and things like that. We helped us develop this patrol report, and you can see that it has that the map shows our footprint for the evening. All the incidents that we had that we came across in the community are numbered there, and you can find out what we did there. It shows, you know, how many people we had on a patrol, how many needles we came across, who was our leaders and things like that. It just helps us to focus, you know, our energies better on our community by, you know, identifying hotspots. What I'd like to say though is, recently somebody came to me and asked me about, you know, we're finding a lot of syringes in our community these days, where I think we're probably 34,000 syringes we've taken off the streets this year so far. Last year was only 400. Somebody asked me, you know, where's the hotspot in our community for finding syringes, and I looked at the map and I just went, because it's everywhere now in our community. Our first year in operation, we found 18 syringes on the ground. The second year, we found 300. Last year, 4,000. This year, we're on pace to find 40,000 syringes in our community. That's a 10-fold increase year on year. And again, that represents a significant amount of pain in our community. I'm sure you recognize that. So we're working very hard to try to see something positive come out of it. We're looking to try to get safe injection sites, a better needle exchange program in our communities. And just last night, Mayor Bowman announced that he may consider going forward with a safe injection site in our community without the assistance or the approval of the province. But I'm hoping that's not just an election promise. So something else we're doing, job readiness. Again, like we're getting all kinds of different trainings, mental health and first aid and things like that. We're also getting trainings with, we have an understanding with the Canadian Red Cross when they need volunteers and surge support for the fire evacuees last year from Island Lakes, the fire evacuees this year from Pangasi and Little Grand. They hired us to come in and really, we were there as ambassadors to help be a liaison between the service providers and the community members. They had hired, I think their standard protocol is to hire impact security to provide security for the 22 hotels where the evacuees were being housed. The problem with that was the security companies really had no respect for our people, and so there was a lot of abuse going on there. So they literally hired us to go in there and police those people, and we spent a great amount of time doing that. What I'm seeing happen is that it's building up the confidence of our community members. We do serve a marginalized community, and a lot of our volunteers are themselves from the community. They're marginalized as well. They haven't been in the workforce in the past, so we give them an opportunity to make some money, get into the workforce on a temporary basis. We're very, we don't have a strict schedule. We work on a drop-in basis. People come when they can, and when they can't, we don't worry about that. That's the freedom that we offer them, and I think it's really helping to build the confidence. I'm seeing people get trained up now and starting to leave. They're going out and getting jobs. They're going into training courses and things like that. And I mean, if we're going to lose a volunteer, I'd much rather lose it, to a training program or to a job rather than, the streets and drugs. All right. So one of the most recent training opportunities we had, tactical communication, that was through the Winnipeg Police. And that's basically your nonviolent crisis intervention. It's, the training programs are ongoing. We've got first aid train-the-trainer training as well. Post-traumatic stress management now. We've done some Alzheimer's awareness. This nonviolent crisis intervention training as well. And we're looking at some sort of self-defense training for our personnel, because with all the edge weapons that we're coming across in the community, just to be safe, we want to make sure that people know how to get out of the way in a hurry. And these trainings are all offered free of charge for our volunteers. Back to methamphetamine. Last year, around Christmas time, we went in, a group of our volunteers went into the McDonald's on Main Street and Mountain, and when they got in there, somebody was using meth in the ladies' bathroom. That big bag you see up there in the corner was probably about this full. I don't know how much money that was worth, but it was a huge bag of meth. It was all scattered all over the floor, all over the baby change table. See the red circle? That's the toilet paper dispenser roll that they were doing it right there on that roll, and it got pushed in the corner. They just left it there. Pardon me. So we had we alerted the staff there to what was going on. They closed the bathroom down until it could be properly cleaned. We took the meth out of there so it wouldn't be bothered by anybody else. That other little bag you see in the corner, that was one of our youth mock patrols. This is why we train our youth about these hazards in the community, because they are coming across these things on a daily basis. We found for the first year probably 19 bags of meth. We're averaging about a dozen bags per year. This year, again, we're seeing another real spike in finds. We're finding it almost on a weekly basis, probably 22 bags so far this year. And like we're talking, like we're not taking this from people. This is stuff that was found on the ground because they are carelessly losing it out of their pocket because they're so high. This here, again, back to syringes. These things that we're finding right outside of our community housing places, outside of our restaurants, outside of our grocery stores, on the streets. It used to be that we'd only find these things in the dark corners of our community, under the loading docks and by the garbage bins and things like that. But these days we're finding it everywhere. Donations, again, this is how we've been surviving most recently. Like I said, last year we did 20 tons of produce and baked goods. This year, 40 tons. So far, we're probably going to do 50 or 55. It's because of the help of organizations like Sage Creek Sobeys, Costco in Winnipeg on St. James, Home Depot, the big stuff on the top there, that's from Home Depot. Every store gave us 10 cases of water, 10 cases of toilet paper, 10 flashlights, 10 sets of rubber gloves and things like that. And that's just for our use, our consumption. We're also making care kits that we're handing out in the community to homeless people. When we come across homeless people in our community, one of the things that's commonly overlooked is toilet paper. I've seen our community members, because they don't have any access to, like the homeless people don't have proper access to toilets. They just do their business, pick their pants up and carry on. If you don't stay clean, you don't stay healthy. So we're starting to include toilet paper in all of our care kits we hand out as well. We probably handed out more than 1,500 so far in the last 2 years. I've got one more slide there. Yeah. So some of our community partners, Indian Métis Friendship Center, Street Connections. We have kind of a funny relationship with Street Connections. I myself was poked retrieving a syringe in December last year. I had another volunteer in January that was poked as well. And whenever these things happen, you know, I tend to go kind of, well, I go to the media and I start complaining. And so I went into Street Connections after I got poked there in December to pick up our next batch of sharp containers, and I was confronted by one of the higher ups there. She was complaining to me about the news report that I did, complaining about them. And she was saying, you know, the baby diapers that you're finding in your community are just as dangerous or more dangerous than the syringes you're finding. And I said to her, well, I've never seen one of my community members playing with one of those baby diapers, so I kind of shut her up. Canadian Red Cross is another one that we work with very closely. When we first started out, the Winnipeg Police were not what I would consider an ally, but thankfully I've seen a 180-degree change in the way they deal with us. They're very much more supportive. Again, the fact that they're offering us trainings and things like that is something that they never would have done 5 years ago. When we catch a John interacting with one of our street-involved women, I can take the license plate and I send it to a detective, and the detectives contact the registered owner of the vehicle. The registered owner is given an opportunity to explain why their vehicle was seen interacting with one of our street-involved women. And just for the record, the registered owner is not always the driver. We've caused a lot of problems for a lot of people. Consequences where there was none before. Costco again, a very good partner for us. We get most of our produce and baked goods from them. This year they've also decided they're going to give us cooler items, so we're able to bring, we're going to be bringing frozen meats into our community now, starting very soon. Fire paramedics are giving us trainings as well. In the Dinaway Resource Center, Youth Drop-In Center, that's where we're based out of. And Thunderbird House lets us use their facility for doing our pledge ceremonies and things like that. Some of the things people are saying about Bear Clan. Former Grand Chief Derek Leapenack said Bear Clan is writing a new history. Kind of amazed me because he and I didn't really get along very well. Bear Clan has changed the conversation, said Leah Gazan, activist and educator. and Elder Obed Caribou at Native Clan said Bear Clan is a healing and protective society. We protect the community, we provide for the community, and we give voice to the voiceless. One of the things I'd like to point out here, though, for all of our hard work and for all of our efforts, we did lose 2 of our youth in 21 days in August. One of the boys was, he just turned 18 years old. He was one of our youth volunteers. He turned 18 on the 25th of June. On the 9th of August, we were burying him. I had a meeting in the end of August with Andrew Scheer, and we were there to talk about the meth epidemic in our community and about the services and things like that and what our needs were. I was there with my board chair, and there was also the biz guy from downtown and one of his walkers. And they let the biz guy speak first. He was talking about the economy downtown, and he was talking about how, you know, the garbage associated with the meth epidemic, the people associated with the meth epidemic were hurting their commerce downtown, and they were afraid that they were going to be shuttering stores and things like that, and business was going to go away. And I was rolling my eyes as loud as I possibly could, you know. When it became my turn, I picked up my phone and I showed it to Andrew Scheer, and it had a picture of one of our volunteers with 3 of her children. She's a very beautiful young woman, and her children are beautiful, and it's a beautiful family. And I passed him the phone, and he took a look at the picture. He goes, "Oh, what a beautiful family." I said, "Yeah." He said, "We lost her yesterday because we don't have the mental health supports in our community to protect our community members." And so that's how I started that conversation with him. And again, sadly, we're losing community members at a staggering rate. We're losing our own trained volunteers to the same problems, and so it's not easy. It's never going to be over, but if we work together, we can change the way things are going, and that's kind of what I wanted to share with you today.
I know a little bit about Britta, and then I learned more about her through a friend, but I just want to welcome you. I told her not to be nervous. This is like one big family here, and this is her first time ever doing this, so please be patient with her, and she might get nervous at times, and we'll just play it by ear. So Britta's going to share a bit of her story with everyone here.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me here today. I'm pretty nervous. I'd like to talk about my journey. At first it was hard for me, but it became easy as the weeks went by, months. Now here I am, a little over a year. I did whatever I could to get my kids back. I had to, because that's the only way I knew that they were safe. The programs I took, like, to help me through my healing process, I went for counseling, one-on-one counseling with AFM worker at the Willard Monson. I got my certificate for that. And I also had one-on-one with mental health counselors. And I went to, like, sweats. I took, like, how would I say that? Like, I cleansed myself going to sweats, and it helped me a lot. Like, it got my mind on the good side, I guess. Like, after months, years of being depressed, just for no reason, I guess, I'm actually happy for once in my life. I don't cry anymore. I don't have anxiety like I used to. I don't even have to worry about anything anymore. Because I didn't have to fight anymore just to be loved, or knowing that me and my kids were safe. But now, we're doing so good. I have my son with me and my daughter, but I'm still currently fighting for custody, like getting my visiting rights for my other son. Hopefully I'll see him soon. Tomorrow's his birthday. But, where do you want me to start?
I visited with Britta a couple weeks ago, and she shared some things with me that I asked her if she'd be comfortable sharing here today, and she said she would be, but I guess she just doesn't know how to bring it up. So I wanted to ask her, how old were you when you first started using crystal meth?
I was 25, but I've only tried it once, and I quit for about 4 months. But I was tricked, because I used to do cocaine. I was introduced to cocaine, and I was tricked because I was sold like this little bag that looked like cocaine, which I didn't know it wasn't. It was crystal meth. So after that, I felt horrible because I'd never do something like that. Turns out, the person sold me that. So the months went by, I started having no luck. I started having no luck on my side. It seemed like I had bad luck. I had my own home, I had a family, I had lots of jobs and everything. And then for some reason, I started losing that slowly. But at this time, I wasn't on crystal meth. I quit my job because I couldn't take it anymore. People bashing me on Facebook just because, the person I was with before. So people were saying I was doing meth at that time. So after all that abuse, you get, I don't know, fed up, I guess. I got fed up. So my friends asked me if I wanted to try it. So I said, okay, I'll try it, whatever. So I tried it. The first time I snorted it, just for a week. And then after that, I smoked it for 2. And I quit for a week again. And then someone offered to shoot me up. They shot me up for the first time, and I couldn't find myself to be addicted like I was. I actually never used to do drugs before all of that. You wouldn't think I would do drugs, but I did.
When I spoke to you, you told me that when you were using crystal meth, you felt really good about yourself. You had lots of energy. You said you could wash your walls, wash your ceilings. You had lots of confidence, and there was nothing else that could give you that feeling. Can you maybe just explain that a little bit?
Yeah. Through the years of being called down, being called ugly or fat or whatever, for once in my life, I felt good. I felt I wasn't lazy. I always did myself up, and I was actually losing weight. And that's the only good part about it, I found. And once I started to realize that I was actually getting too small, my skin was getting gray, and I started looking like I was dying, every day. And although I thought everything was okay, and it wasn't. People were telling me, you're not the same, and in my own world, I was. It makes you hallucinate, and it makes you talk to yourself, stay up, and everything. You lose your appetite. You're always depressed. You always want to commit suicide. And that's not the way to live. You can't, like, your family, like, probably beg you, please stop. And you ignore them, but don't ignore them. I ignored my mom for so long, till she actually had to come and get me, like, physically. Hold on to me, you're coming with me, she said. So I said, okay. And I felt like I had no choice. So I went home to Sandy Bay with her, and I stayed in her house. But I did run away once. I shouldn't have. But she came and got me again, just 2 days after. And she was so mad. But I thank my mom and my family for helping me. She, like, by the look on her face when she told me, like, please don't, Britta, I love you. And before all of that, I used to think that she didn't love me and that she didn't care about me. But from when she said that to me, there was proof in her eyes that she did love and care for me, and she was crying. So I told myself, listen to your mom. Like, I actually felt loved and cared for there. And that's pretty much what everyone needs, I guess. Like, the place I lived at, I asked them, like, why do you do drugs? And none of them answered saying, because it's fun, or whatever. Everyone had a problem. Oh, my parents don't love me. Like, everyone would say something like that, or they'd have, oh, I was in CFS care, like, and stuff like that. Or, oh, I lost my kids. Like, they would all say things like that. Nothing, like, everybody had a problem to mask their pain. They didn't want to feel that pain anymore, just like how I did. I felt down, like I never felt like that before in my life. I was very sad. I would cry every night, like, even after I did drugs. Like, I thought I was okay. I didn't feel that pain, but as the drug wore off, there it was again. I would never leave. So I think that people need more counseling. Like, people need to ask for help. Some people are scared. And I'm glad that I actually tried to get my help that I needed any way I could, just to get off that drug. Like, I thought I was hopeless at one point. I even tried to go to jail just to get me off of it, but that didn't work. And and at times, like all the time, I now know what it feels like to starve. Because where I stayed, there was nothing to eat. And then if I tried to ask, like, family members, like, if I could go visit, whatever, I wasn't welcome. And I lost lots of trust from family, friends, and that's an awful feeling. But since I've been off, a lot of people trust me now again. And I like that. It's a good feeling. And plus two, I found when I was on the drug, like, for so long, I started to forget memories, special memories, like of my grandma. I started thinking about her, like, I could only see her face. I couldn't think about memories of when I was, like, a kid. No, I couldn't. Even the birth of my first son, I couldn't even remember it. That's how lost I was in drugs. And it took a lot for me to finally tell myself, like, get off of it. I prayed to God. because I felt so alone. I prayed to him. I said, if there is God, please show me a sign that you're here with me. And I was crying in my room. I was waiting for a sign. There was no sign. But as the months went by, little did I know he was sending me signs showing me that he was there. Because I still can't believe it, but I met so much strangers along the way. They would come up to me and grab my hand and say, "Can I pray for you?" Then I said, "Yeah, sure." So, 4 people did that to me within the first month. And then the last person I went to, her name is Vanessa St. Clair. She asked me if I wanted to go to church with her, and I was trying to say no. And then she said, "Well, they have snacks there." And of course I was hungry, and I said, "Yeah, sure, I'll go." And that's the day I started believing in God. There is a God, because I prayed for him all the time to help me. I even prayed to my ancestors. I had to go to ceremonies and take medicines. And here I am today, happy and healthy. And I don't think I'll ever go back to that. I wouldn't actually. I have my kids that are watching me now. And it was a hard fight to get off of that drug. During the times I'd have these withdrawals, it was so horrible. It felt like I get shocks all through my body and my head. It just felt like shocks, it hurted, like anxiety. And that sucks. I don't know.
And is that something that made you want to do it again, so you didn't have to feel that?
Before, yeah.
Yeah.
But when I first got off, I kept feeling it, those shocks. It took 21 days for those shocks to stop. And I slept a lot. I sweat a lot. And then my mom helped me get this medicine, to help cleanse my body. I took that, and it put me right to sleep. And when I woke up, my clothes were all wet, my hair. It took 3 days. That happened in 3 days, and I never felt so good in my life. After all months and months of crying all the time, being sick of my life, and I felt very, very happy to be finally happy. It feels really good. And plus to have your mind set on getting your children back. That's all my mind was set on, getting them back. And within 5 months, I got my own home. Then a month after, I got my kids back. It took 6 months. And I'm sure everyone else that has lost their kids can do that too. Any more questions?
Britta lives in St. Rose. She has a beautiful home, and she was just recently engaged. She has a beautiful set of rings on her fingers here. So congratulations on that.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh, anything else? Yeah, I just want to drink something.
What, I was sitting here earlier listening to James give his presentation, and I had someone come down and sit with me. He gave me and my mom and my daughter, a scare last week. He came into our house and he said he was afraid of somebody being outside to hurt him, and he scared us. And as James was speaking earlier, he came and sat with me. and he grabbed my hand and he told me, he apologized last week on Facebook, but he came and sat with me here this evening, and he told me he was sorry, and it was very powerful to get an apology from him on the computer, but to have him come and sit with me here and say he was sorry and to be here really spoke to me. So he's here, and I know there's others here that have either used or are using, or maybe even some that are contemplating using. What can you share with them to help keep them, or if they're on that path right now, to help bring them to a healthier journey? What kind of message would you, if you were able to talk to them one-on-one, what kind of message would you share with them?
Well, if you're struggling, like emotionally, like don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be afraid to let anybody else know. Because once you bottle up something inside, it drives you crazy. Like you start doing like stupid things, and that's what I should have done. That's why I have drove myself to do drugs, just because I had no one to talk to. And like parents, grab a hold of your child or whoever, like tell them you love them and tell them you're there for them. They'll listen. It might take a while, but once you really show it to them, I'm sure that they'll give in, because crystal meth is not a drug you should do. It is not a joke. You can either, like, it's killing you slowly. You actually lose everything. You lose your home. If you have a job, then you start to lose your mind. You don't think the same as you used to before. You're filled with, like, you're paranoid all the time. And that's not the way to live. Can't be living all scared. And I've, like, people I've met down, like, my journey, like, when I was doing drugs, all those people, they weren't bad. They might have done bad things, but deep down inside, they were good people, just screaming for help, like, basically, but they weren't asking for it. They would always talk about the problems and whatever. Yeah, it's just, I don't know, it kind of makes me upset when people call down people that are doing those drugs. It makes me upset because you don't know them. You might know them as they're, like, them being bad, but they're actually good people deep down inside. You just gotta help them resurface.
You mentioned going to church helped bring you back, helped save you, and then you also mentioned going to sweats. You know, there's some people that will only go to church, or some people that will only go to sweats. In your case, both those things helped you. So, you know, that's one resource that people can go to. What other resources do you think are needed in a community, or are there and not being accessed?
Just like, I found that the one-on-one counseling with the AFM worker helped me a lot too. And also one-on-one with a mental health worker. She helped me let go of, like, past experiences of hurt. Why I couldn't let go, why I thought I was worthless, why, like, I didn't love myself. But I do now. I have an awesome family. Everybody shows me love. Not like before. Like, they were showing me love before, but it's just, you just gotta let go of person that used to hurt you emotionally. And that's, I kind of don't like talking about it.
That's fine. Yeah. Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's all. I don't know if there's anyone here that has any questions for Britta. Some things are probably a little bit personal, but I'm sure she's willing to answer. I know there's some families here who have children who use. I know there's some users here. I know we have a couple nurses here, some school teachers. Britta's open to answering any questions anyone might have in regards to what she shared in regards to her journey. Don't you have a microphone? Just kidding. Cameron's asking, what are some signs that one can watch for, with their child or their spouse or whatever? Yeah.
The signs, I'd say, is look at the eyes. They're glossy, and they have a red mark right across, and the skin will start going gray, loss of appetite, and being with the wrong people, like being with the wrong crowd. It might not be the wrong crowd, but like they are good people deep down inside, but it just, people choose the wrong path sometimes, and then you can't hang around with those kind of people. That's kind of how I got away from it too. It was very hard for me to walk away from my friends that were like family to me. But as I walked away, I sobered up and they were still on it. They would message me asking for help, how did I do it? And I happily gave them like advice. And it feels so good to know that they're sober too. Going on 6-7 months now for a couple of my friends. And it took everything for me to explain to them that you're killing yourself. Every shot you take, you're killing yourself. And they believe me. And why I say that is because I was hospitalized. I had an infection in my liver and my kidneys, and I had low blood count. And they said that was too low for me because it was marked at 8. And normally it's 200, I'm pretty sure. And I was down to 8 blood count. That's why I think every time you use drugs, you kill yourself. And you lose your mind slowly. There are some cases that people don't even come back from it. After using for so long, you get meth psychosis, and I don't think there's any turning back from there. And you don't know when you'll get it. You could get it at any time actually. Your first shot, whatever, your last shot. I actually know someone, there's something wrong with him now from doing crystal meth. I'm not gonna say his name because I would rather ask him for permission. But he doesn't talk to anybody. Like it's as if he doesn't understand, like he's lost. And I don't think anybody wants to go through that. Or any of your family to go through that. I don't know what else to say.
Is there anyone else who has any questions? Oh, there's a question, Britta. Did you want the microphone? Counseling, yes. But I'm done with AFM. And when I started, he was actually pretty,
happy for me because I've already passed all the stages you go through when you quit. And he actually asked me about my story too, of how I did it on my own. And then I told him about our culture, that it helped me. And he was pretty surprised. And then I don't know, he was jokingly saying, oh, maybe you could come an AFM worker one of these days. I would like to.
Did you attend the Narcotics Anonymous?
Yeah.
Where?
Portage.
Something else Britta hasn't mentioned, she attended Narcotics Anonymous in Portage, and that was another source that helped her in her journey to recover.
Yeah, and that's what our communities should have now. NA, Narcotics Anonymous, instead of Alcohol Anonymous.
Plus, like,
Or plus. So you could have them both together, but I find that Narcotics Anonymous is very important for our communities now that that drug is around.
Being here today, we can get stronger and build on that, and make sure we have someone in the school and someone, just have some.
Sit down.
When I worked at Mamaway, we didn't like using the word security. We used the word safety monitor, and we had safety monitors at all of our sites. Like, say there was a safety monitor here, it could be somebody you could go to, and they'd have that information here someplace, like say Natalie or somebody, because you don't want to be seen walking into this office or that office, but just a few designated people in the community that can have that information or help you. I think those are maybe some of the things we can work towards. But to answer your question, Cameron, yeah, that's what we have here.
So is that just, that's including like suicide prevention and everything here?
Yeah.
Just so everybody knows, not only meth crisis, but
Yeah.
that's also a big problem as well.
Yeah, and like Britta touched on that as well, and I think that's it's tied into this. I don't think it's a whole other topic, but I think it's something that we as a community can work towards, work together to prevent as well. Because there's been a lot of people affected by that as well, so.
When I used to do drugs, like the places I used to get my needles from were the health offices. They give out boxes of like 200, like all the time. Even you could get a box of 1,000 if you wanted. And I think they shouldn't do that. I know it's for safety reasons. But from them doing that, it only increased the drug use, like, of shooting up. Like, I think they should put a stop to that. Maybe not that much people would be shooting up, and you would stop, and maybe people wouldn't be finding them at the playgrounds anymore, because I hear that there's a lot of needles being found at kids' playgrounds and on the streets, and that's not good. And you could also get, like, what I hear is Hep C from shooting, and you could get a lot of things from that, like HIV even. There's a lot of diseases around.
James touched on that a little bit as well. I know, like, living in Winnipeg, I can't speak for out here, but when I lived in Winnipeg, like, I lived in the North End, I worked in the North End, and there was lots of clinics that provided needles to prevent the spread of disease, so that people were using clean needles as opposed to dirty needles, because when they're desperate and they want to shoot up, they don't care if it's clean or dirty. Like, they'll use a dirty needle, you know? So if they don't have clean ones, agencies are afraid that they're going to use dirty ones, and with all the Hep C and the different diseases that could. So when James mentioned a safe injection site, I know there's a lot of that. I watched the documentary. They have a lot of those in Vancouver, where people come, they do what they do, they inject safely, and then they're monitored for an amount of time before they let them go. And I'm kind of in between on that one, because I don't think it's so much as, it's not encouraging or promoting, but it's trying to save people from getting things like Hep C and HIV, and preventing all these needles from being found, you know? So, your opinion is valued, and, you know, there was a lot of people here who agreed with that, and stuff like that.
I was very honored to be here today. My story wasn't like the way I wanted to tell it, but it's my first time like actually talking to it in front of everyone, like anybody actually. And that's why my story was all over the place, but in time, my story will get better.
You did a perfect job. You spoke from your heart, and we appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Britta.
And if anyone wants the message, feel free to message me. I can help any way I can to help in your journey to becoming sober. And yeah, thank you for inviting me here today, Marlene.
Okay.
I greatly
Thank you for
appreciate
coming.
it.